Alright, this tutorial we're going to go over how to write equations, or graph them specifically, but using the point-slope form. So this is a brand new equation form that most of you are probably not going to be familiar with, but just like slope-intercept form, it's very easy just to tell by the name what things you need in order to graph, and the form of the equation, in my opinion, is much easier than slope-intercept. So point-slope form is an equation of a linear function that uses the two things that make up the name. So it's any point. It doesn't have to be your y-intercept like in slope-intercept form, and the slope. Just those two things you're going to need in order to graph. So your basic form of your equation is a little bit different. The y is not by itself. There's actually part of your point is with the y in your equation, and that's going to be called your y1. I don't know if you remember your slope formula. You had your y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. That's just another way to indicate your point. So this is an example. Your x1 and y1 are going to be the numbers that you plug into the form right here for your point. So when you subtract the y minus the y1, you set that equal to your slope, or your m, and then in parentheses, you're going to take your x minus your x1. So those three things are actually going to be numbers. The y right here and the x right here stay your variables. Those have to be present in your equation. Now the other thing I want to point out is notice right here where it says y minus y1. That just means that it's going to be the opposite sign of whatever your number is going to be. So if this is, let's say, a y minus 2, that means that your number that you're actually going to use as your y coordinate is going to be a positive 2 because it's opposite of a negative. The negative just means opposite, or you're going to flip the sign. So if we go into our first equation, y plus 7 equals negative 1 over 2 times parentheses x plus 5. The two things that we have to figure out in order to graph it are what the point is inside this equation and what the slope is. The slope is the easy part. It's just this fraction right here. It's the number that's in front of your parentheses. So your m is negative 1 over 2. That's what we're going to use as our slope. Now right here, this is going to tell us what our y1 is and what our x1 is. But since we're given a plus 7 in the y position, that means that our y coordinate is a negative 7. Notice how I'm taking the opposite sign of what's given into that equation. Same thing over here in the x position. Since we have x plus 5 inside of our parentheses, we're going to use negative 5 as our x1 point. And once you have those two things, you're able to draw that graph. So we're going to go to negative 5, negative 7. Plot our point right there. I think I found another dead spot in the tablet. And then our slope is going to be down 1 over 2. Down 1 over 2. You can draw a couple of these points on the line. You can do a couple in the opposite direction. So that way when you're drawing your line, you have a little bit more room to work with. But you only need those two things in order to draw that graph. Let's move on to the second one. Y minus 4 equals negative 4 over 5 times x minus 1. So the easy part is figuring out our slope. That's the number in front of a parentheses. So the slope is negative 4 over 5, down 4 over 5. Now that's not much better. All right, so since we have a y minus 4 and an x minus 1, we're going to flip the signs on both of those for our points. So the x1 is a negative 1. That means we're using positive 1 as our point value. Since the y is a negative 4, we're going to use positive 4 as our point value right there. So we're going to go and plot our point, 1, 4. And then we go down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as our point. And if I kept going, I would run out of room in that direction. So I'm going to go the opposite way, up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. You don't have to draw this third point. This is just going to help me draw a little bit of a straighter line. Keyword being a little bit, because it's really hard to draw straight lines on this, but you get the picture. The big thing is this starting point that you're given from the graph, and then any other point outside of that using your slope. And just make sure that you're aware of the negative values that are changing and where each number goes in the general relation of your point slope form.